We'd like to welcome you to the BmoreNews Morning Show. My name's Donnie Glover, and we're here with the one and only Mosher Jews. Hi, Mosher.
Good morning. How's everybody this morning? I know I am really pumped because everybody, I know my family has already been rallying all their people, and folks have been getting out the rest of the people to vote. So I'm all for it. I'm very excited. Nobody's playing with these people. Now there's one problem though that's going on down there, and that people who were sent in for their ballots, Tyler Perry didn't get his, and he sent his around December the 5th. And so there are a whole bunch of people that did not get their ballots, and so they're going to have to go and get in line and do the voting today. It's crazy down there.
Good morning, Kavette Minor King. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning, Donnie. Good morning, Marsha.
Good morning,
Hughes and Alan. How are you all?
Good morning. We're doing good.
He's 95 years young. You got to call him Mr. Meacham. That's what we call him. We put in Alan Meacham because he's a young boy, but
got it.
I ain't gonna let you walk into a brick wall. now, Kavette, do you know anything about baseball? You got to call him Mr. Meacham. That's what we call him.
You said, do I know anything about baseball?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I know how to play.
Okay, well, Mr. Meacham, what did you and your friends do? What was the year, 1960? Mr. Meacham?
Mr. Meacham went to get a cup of coffee.
All right, well, Charlie, how did you get involved in James Moser baseball?
I got involved through my dad. I think he came in to James Moser, I think 1962 or 63, something like that. And the story goes is that Mr. Meacham kind of drafted him in. Mr. Meacham was selling some sort of product from a head company, and they got to talking, and Mr. Meacham said we are going to start this Little League program, and they got to talking back and forth, and my father became a member of James Moser, and I, following after my dad, I decided to played for Mr. Shepard with the Braves, I think from 1962 to 19.
I ain't gonna let you walk into a brick wall.
So that's how I got involved with James Moser.
And what team did you play for, Charlie?
I played for the Braves.
For the Braves? Now, the goal back then wasn't to teach us baseball, I've later learned. Marsha, we thought we were around this baseball field to get some baseball lessons, and come to find out it wasn't about baseball at all, Marsha.
What was it about?
So, Mr. Meacham, you there?
Hey, Mr. Meacham. He stepped away from the screen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Charlie, if it wasn't about baseball, what was it all about?
It was about life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. No, ma'am. Please and thank you. Just your basic things that you learned in kindergarten. And it was about life lessons because at the time, the neighborhood was basically a middle-class neighborhood. And we all had problems of being Black in a middle-class neighborhood in the 60s. And the lessons from James Moser was life lessons, how to treat your fellow man, how to be respectful, just being a young Black man at the time,
Mm-hmm.
standing up for yourself.
Who was James Moser?
James Moser, let's see. I really don't know who James Moser was. I think he was a Confederate soldier at that time, and I'll have to Google it. to be sure, but I really don't know who James Moser was, to be honest with you.
That's okay. It's a long time ago.
Yes, it was a long time ago.
A very long time ago. So, right. But, I think that one of the things, and I'm from South Bend, Indiana. I don't know what the guys had, but we had softball and played a lot of softball in Coquillard Park. We also called it Pearly Park, but it was in my neighborhood. And that was one of the things to keep the kids really active, and all of those wonderful life lessons, in
Right.
leadership, and, managing your temper and managing how you behave on the field, and teamwork, and all of those things were real critical, that we didn't always deal with in households or even in schools sometimes. So I think all of these organizations, the Bluebirds and the Campfire Girls and all those others, are really critical to how we grow.
Well, let me share with you. In 1959, a group of 5 men, Archie Lewis, Roland Ganges, Bernard Stokes, Alfonso Cotman, and Edward Watson, began to meet and exchange ideas concerning the social and personal problems of the youth in the city of Baltimore. Now, my understanding was the principal lady at the school that helped bring these men together. And it was believed that a wholesome, well-organized program of sports activities would not only be beneficial to the youth, but to the community as well. Let's try Mr. Meacham. Mr. Meacham, you there with us? He got quiet on us. Well, so Charlie, when you first came in the league, this was your first year coaching?
No, my first year coaching was with you guys. I first came into the league in 1962.
He must have touched the button.
Yep. We lost him.
All right. Well, we're waiting on Charlie to get back. Meanwhile, we got Coach Ruff. Hey, Coach Ruff.
Hey, how's it doing, Johnny?
I haven't seen you in about 45 years.
Wow.
But he found me on Facebook. Now, let me tell you, I didn't know this till last week. They say you was hitting grown man baseballs to little boys. When we was little boys, they say you was cracking the back like we were grown men. That's what Junie said. Junie said you were hitting ball down shortstop like he was Rod Carew in the major leagues.
I probably was. Couldn't help that. That was probably that Marine Corps attitude.
Uh-oh, there you go. Simplify, brother.
Simplify.
What do you know about the Marines, Mosher?
My first real job was with the United States Marine Corps League, and then we created the Capitol Marines, and part of that was the Amphibious Warfare Review magazine and the Modern Day Marine Force and Readiness Military Exhibit. And so everything I know in terms of business was about that. As a matter of fact, my mentor became Lieutenant General Hal Hatch. He was the INL director for the Marine Corps over at headquarters of the Marine Corps under PX Kelly and Al Gray and Bob Barrow. Well, Bob Barrow first, PX, then Al Gray. How about that?
Okay. Well, I'm still.
Those were the commandants to that.
Yeah,
those were the commandants. They were over all of them.
Yep,
well, I don't know them. The closest Marine to myself was my dad.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Yep, he served, and he actually ended up in Vietnam for a little bit, and then he was able to come home and get out.
Yeah, been there, did that too. I am presently with the Marine Corps League here in Baltimore. I'm with
I didn't even know there was one here.
Yes, there's a Baltimore detachment here located in Locust Point. We have a house there. We occupy direct across the street from the Francis Scott Key Elementary School.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I've been with them now for about, I want to say about 7 years.
Okay.
And
when did you go
presently I serve as the as a state commandant for the state of Maryland. So
outstanding.
I am hopefully on my way out though. Come this May.
Man, but you know what? Those kids need you, so don't even try it. And they need to see folks looking like you. Don't even try it. 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 But you know what? Let me say something to you that I want you to think about, sir.
Yeah.
There is a program, the Black Engineer of the Year Awards Conference, happens every February. And this year it's going to be virtual. But they have, and it's called BEA, Black Engineer of the Year Awards. This year, they are virtual, but they have a whole division now called Stars and Stripes. And the military from all of the services participate. All of the flag officers, non-com, the whole 9 yards. It is spectacular. And we're going to do it offline because I'd love for, not this year, but maybe this year where they could still see, but to get these kids to see these people and some of the conferences that they have, because they're doing work with young people and bringing them in when it's live, bringing them in and having conversations about the military, but also about the development of their career and how to stay focused and all the things that you guys are teaching them. And it's just to see all these people of color from all of the branches is magnificent.
That's a beautiful thing that our young boys really need to have. You know, to the positive role models and the discipline and direction, that guidance.
Yeah.
You know, you get that not only from the military training, but team training, which is so key for baseball.
Right.
And I can only imagine the conversations that were had amongst those first 5 men that Donnie mentioned when he introduced the James Moser Baseball. And how they were interested in decreasing the delinquency in the neighborhood and making sure that these young boys had something to focus their energy on. You know, an idle mind, they say, is the devil's playground.
Woo, yeah.
And so we can always find trouble to get into. But if we use our minds and we have that direction and that focus, then they're able to be obviously a lot more positive and to get, you know, a solid foundation under them.
So that's good trouble.
Absolutely.
So we have Mr. Meacham on there, but his line is muted. So Mr. Meacham, if you could unmute your microphone, we could hear you as we did previously. But on that note, Mr. Ruff, how did you come into James Moser Baseball?
Oh, I played in James Moser baseball when I was at I guess in 1960, Charlie, 61.
61,
Coach Hughes
too. Yeah.
Coach Hughes' father recruited, I guess, every able-bodied young man in our neighborhood to play. We played in the James Moser League in the early days when James Moser was just when it was just starting up. So that's how I became.
What was that neighborhood?
Yeah, that's how I became connected. My neighborhood. I live in what's known right now as the Carroll neighborhood.
Carroll Park.
Not that far south. A little further north. I live right off of the border of north and south, off of the South Hilton and Barber Street area.
So you were like Southwest Baltimore.
Yes, we're considered Southwest Baltimore. We're not.
South Baltimore wasn't having you down there. They was going to chase you.
That's a shame.
Oh, you talking about Carroll Park? I got chased out of there. I knew he got chased out of there.
Yeah, no, we weren't quite that far south. We were a little bit more north of that. I don't know if you know anything about like where Mount St. Joe and St. Agnes Hospital in that. We're up in that area, right below Emerson Village area.
Okay.
Because I attended Emerson High School when I got to Emerson. I got to high school age, and I'm right in that area. I'm like walking distance up to Emerson High School. The old Gwynns Falls Junior High School is maybe 3 blocks up the street from where I live. But
Hey, Earl.
Charlie,
I think they called it lower Emerson Village when we were there.
yeah, okay, that would probably be about right. Yeah, because we were actually and actually we were like midway between the Emerson Village and the Poplar Grove area. We were like in between those two areas.
did baseball save your life?
I believe it did. Yeah, I guess I can say it did. Yeah, because as was stated by Ms. Kane, it kept us out of trouble, and we were focused on playing baseball, and so we weren't, wasn't, yeah, we weren't the idle hands. We were busy playing baseball, and when we were playing, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask a question. Would you say that maybe the team structure of baseball is maybe what led you to the military, because there's a very close, structure there and even more discipline in the military, but you would have to be able to handle that teamwork and being able to work, together in a structured environment in order to be able to move into that. How would you say that affected you?
It did a little bit, yeah. Having played baseball and have been in an organized type atmosphere. Yeah, it led to that. When I went into the military, I was able to adapt to that type of rigorous and organized orientation. I can't say that it led me to the military. I hate to say, but I was actually led to the military and to the Marine Corps specifically because someone told me I couldn't.
Okay.
Someone told me that I would not make it in the Marine Corps. Yes.
Oh wow!
And I was determined that I would prove them wrong about that.
How'd that go?
It went well. I mean, it was a rough start. First of all, my mother wasn't crazy about that idea. And when I first got there, I have to admit, we're talking 1969. Marine Corps was a rough camp. And racially, there was still some kind of one-sided activity, but it.
So you were Montford Point?
No, Montford Point had been discontinued by the time I came. That only lasted the late 40s until it was discontinued by the early 50s.
Now, ladies, Montford Point is where the first Black Marines were trained. Did you know that, Marsha?
Yes.
Okay.
They made sure I knew that. Bob Daniels, Sergeant Major Bob Daniels, made sure I knew all that stuff. He was always at Marine Corps League headquarters, and he Black, and he just didn't play. So it's like, if you're gonna be over here, you're gonna know about the Marines. You're gonna know about all the black folks have been over here. And we're still friends to this day. Do you know him? He has Mill Vets Corporation. Do you know Bob?
No, I can't say that I do. I don't.
Yeah, he has a placement agency for military vets, Marine Corps vets.
Okay. I'll have to look that up.
I think that this is 2021. And this league is the oldest Black little league in the country.
Yes.
Y'all didn't tell us that we were playing for the oldest Black little league in the country. But now, what do you say?
I don't know. What do you say? I don't know.
It's an opportunity for us to look at, It's an opportunity for us to look at the positive in our community and to see the strength that has come from such a long time ago. You know, being able to know, and especially that Baltimore again shows its foundational qualities, because so many things have started from Baltimore and been able to grow even on a national level.
Kevette Kane, if you go to James Moser Field today, you'll find that Cal Ripken and others have put a lot of money into redoing the field and preserving this bit of West Baltimore history. Let me also say, back during Freddie Gray, 2015, it was the first time that James Moser had really been recognized by Major League Baseball.
Oh, wow.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah, they sent some. Well, what I enjoyed most was meeting, who was it? What did they bring by there? Frank Robinson, I think.
Frank Robinson, I think Eric Davis showed up. That's the only two that I can remember that that MLB sent to the city.
And so that speaks to something. Baseball is no longer a thing in our community anymore.
Why?
Oh,
it is.
Yeah, let me say this, is that I'm living down here in Dallas, and you know, football is king. Is football, soccer, basketball, and lacrosse. You know, these big country boys like running down the street with sticks. You know, I'm just saying that. But baseball is probably the fifth sport down here in Dallas, and you know, it's just something that I believe that Major League Baseball should invest their time and money into, because baseball is a pure game, a thinking man's game. You know, you have strategies in baseball. I'm not saying that you don't have strategies in football and basketball, but baseball is a strategic game, and you have to, the thinking man game, you have to go out and ponder situations and other strategies of the game that you will be able to play. And it's something that's needed throughout the inner cities of America. I used to live in St. Louis, and there were no baseball leagues, little league in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few down here in Dallas. I think the Texas Rangers has a facility similar to our James Moser Field, where it's all the synthetic turf, and they've built a mini globe-like field down there, and the Texas Rangers run it. It's called a baseball academy, and that's something that needs to be done in the city of Baltimore.
Absolutely. I wonder how many of our watchers or the BmoreNews community, how many members in the community have actually participated in Little League baseball, or you know, any Little League otherwise, as they were growing up, and how that helped them to develop themselves through school and to stay focused and to move forward into creating their careers, as well as who in our community has their children involved in Little League. Now, of course, this past year, nobody's involved in Little League.
Right.
Shut down everything, you know, but even before then, come to think about it, the school system was cutting back extracurricular activities. So the baseball programs, the football programs, I wasn't a baseball player. I did, you know, play in school and for fun with my friends. But I remember being a Little League cheerleader. And that was one of the things that my mom got me involved in, so that I would have some activities even before being in, you know, the upper level in high school or anything like that, as a way of being able to target my energy. I was driving her crazy at home running around, you know, and so that's what our kids do. They got to find something to get into. And nowadays kids are so into video games and, you know, being able to just sit at home. This COVID environment has kind of encouraged that more so. So have you guys, I guess a question would be to understand how is that transitioning, you know, into this new normal that we have? Is baseball becoming more prominent in the video games? Is there, a community where, because I know some folks are really into the esports. Is baseball, one of those esports that they're really playing, in terms of competition and being able to enjoy that as well? Or is that completely just going out? What do you guys think?
I think that, unfortunately, I think baseball is dying only because it's all about money. Football and basketball have started to outpace baseball as far as monetary gains. Kids can see that they can make more money playing football or either basketball than they can playing baseball. So baseball is not as inviting as it used to be. I think back in the day, back when we were growing up, it was sports. All of the sports back when we were growing up in the '60s, though, was more inviting because the players were everyday people.
Right.
When we were when I was growing up, on the off season, you saw the players around town. A lot of them had jobs around town, like our dads and stuff. They worked around town and things, so you saw them. You were able to relate to them because you saw them on an everyday basis on the off season. Then you would see them, during the season. You see them playing, and you say, I know him, and I've met him. And whereas today, your athletes today, most of them are close to being multimillionaires. You have the ones that do give back to the community, but you don't see them in the community like you did back in the day. And like I said, the sports, basketball, football, as far as the financial future, kids now see that more so. Baseball is probably coming up third when it comes to a monetary future for the young people today. They look at those, they look at the players that are playing today and the amount of money that they're making.
Dollar signs.
Yeah,
Right.
guys are going into these sports and they're these 30, 40, $50 million a year or $50 million over a 3-year thing.
Right.
A lot. But I think baseball is more of a participation sport, I think, than a spectator sport. I know for myself personally, even with my kids, they were homeschooled, so they didn't, participate in the school activities like that, like most kids in public schools. But we had a group of friends who would get together, and every weekend we would go to play baseball. And for them, that was like the highlight of the week. It was a great opportunity for them to get out and get some exercise. I preferred them going to play baseball versus football because I knew they wouldn't get hurt. So, and then they got to run around and be active with their friends and things like that. So I think really in our community, if we don't allow it to die, it can still be very significant for us.
I think that these team sports is really important just in terms of how children can learn how to interact with other people, deal with teams, how to work in groups, because when you start getting into the real world, you have to be able to function in these environments and to be able to have, in some cases, they need that structure. They need that determination. They need that excitement. They need to be able to let loose some of that energy. And how do we harness all of that in an environment where we're now, in a pandemic? We can't get outside. We can't do all those things. How do we now make that transfer into individual homes? And how are these children getting some of that much needed structure in this kind of environment?
Well, it's difficult to get it, especially in this COVID environment, to get that type of structure. But like Coach Ruff was saying, is that people don't realize that baseball is the only guaranteed money. Once you reach the major leagues, and if you get demoted back to the minor leagues, you'll still get your major league money. Football and basketball, unless you're a top flight player, the money is not guaranteed. Once you get cut, that's it. And you might have the multi-million-dollar contract, but a lot of these athletes, they'll spend it on let me say, they'll spend it on their girlfriends. There was wait a minute. There was Des Bryant, who now plays for the Ravens. When he came to the Cowboys, he dropped $400,000 on jewelry on his girlfriend, and you know that's to me that's absolutely ridiculous. And he was out of the league for about 2 years, 3 years before the Ravens picked him up. And that's the type of mindset that these modern day athletes have. You know, I got mine and you'll get yours, and you know, we'll all get along. But these modern athletes don't realize that people such as Tommy Smith and John Carlos, who stood on the podium at the '68 Olympics, sacrificed their lives for Black power and the integrity of the game. But these modern athletes, they're isolated or insulated from that type of reality, and that's something that is taught at an early age. You give back to the community. From the community that has enhanced you, you give back to it. And I believe that's what Coach Ruffin and myself did. We gave back to the community that helped us along. And little things such as that, you know, it's life lessons. You know, it's not the balls and strikes and the hitting and catching of the baseball.
So with you coaches under the current restrictions with COVID, are you all still able to meet with your teams, maybe virtually, and you know, have that camaraderie, that conversation in preparation for when we're able to return back to the field?
Well, Yvette, I'm not sure that they are coaching these days. There are men who are, and others who are still around coaching.
Okay.
But as you were talking about the give back, you know, I look at the city of Baltimore. Now, I remember Glenn Dowdy. He helped build Shake and Bake, and Carmelo Anthony helped build a community center over there in East Baltimore, Youth Center. But considering the athletes that have come out of Baltimore City, the give back has been dismal. And so personally, when I hear about another multi-million-dollar athlete being, you know, signing a contract, all I want to know is one thing: what is his or her give back? When I look at LeBron and what he's built for other people, and there are others who have used their money to actually do something, like buy people houses, or you know, not just your own family, but the give back. That's what Coach Ruff and Coach Hughes taught us. That this is about more than just sports. It's about being a grown man. We don't see a lot of that in Baltimore. I mean, we have recreation centers that have never been rebuilt. Easterwood, where I lived at, that recreation center has never been rebuilt. But just down the road in Washington, D.C., down in Prince George's County, they've got baseball fields and football fields with lights, Cavette. They got lights down your way.
Well, the Washington Nationals just won the I just lost them from my head. What's the name of it? The big baseball, the World Series.
World Series.
They just won the World Series a couple of years ago. I mean, I remember that being the big thing when I first came back. Everybody was walking around with W's on their hats, and I was like, "What is?" You know, I know it's not a Walgreens hat, but it was the Washington Nationals. You know, and so it's like, okay, well, you know, understanding it's still significant when you're winning. you know. And so the thing is, who's paying attention to what's going on with the teams? Are they still recruiting, you know, young kids? Are they providing the opportunities? I mean, Coach Hughes, you made an excellent point from a financial planner perspective, being able to set yourself up and have a steady income even when you're falling back in the game, possibly. That's a huge bonus, you know, for someone to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to be able to set myself in this way for this many years, and I can plan for retirement and be able to contribute to, you know, your retirement funding and things like that. So
that's true. That's so true. Do any of you guys know what July the 1st is?
No.
July the 1st, Bobby Bonilla Day. He's been retired for about 25 years, and he's still collecting salaries from the New York Mets and the Baltimore Orioles.
Wow.
He had foresight to plan ahead. He take less money on the front end, and he's getting money on the back end. So he's set for life. I think his contract expires in the year 2035, unless I've heard talks that the New York Mets, the organization, wants to buy that back end out. So, but he's one of the few athletes that's getting money on the back end who had the foresight, or his agent had the foresight to say, take less money up front, and we'll have you on the back end, because athletes, we know they're not going to play that long.
Right.
You know, they're not going to play forever. In the NFL, I think it's an athlete will play at least. I think their average time of is 5 years in the NFL, and that's not a long time. And once you're out, you know, you're out. You got to get a job, or you know, because a lot of these athletes do not. I know personally, a lot of these athletes do not salt their money away. They spend it on the Bentleys, and they spend it on jewelry for the girlfriends and this, that, and the other, the babies' mamas, and all of that. So the money just flies away.
So does Kavette, have you ever heard of Kurt Flood? I'm about to give you some baseball history.
No. Enlighten me.
Mosher, you ever heard of Kurt Flood?
I've heard of some floods, but I don't think Kurt.
Well, Kurt Flood, he played for the St. Louis Cardinals, and he was one of the greatest players of his era. But one day he was traded to another team, and he said it made him feel like a slave. And so he quit baseball, and he became a derelict, drinking himself to life or death in Europe. But eventually, in the process, he was suing American baseball. He sued American baseball for the right to determine where he would play, and created ultimately free agency. So any baseball player, football player, basketball player that has a free agency contract today has a black man named Kurt Flood to thank. Is that right, Mr. Ruff, Coach Ruff?
I believe I am not totally familiar with all that, but I believe you're right on the majority of it. Yes.
How about you, Coach?
Yeah, that's true, Donnie. That's true. I think it was in 1970 when he challenged the free agency rule in baseball. He also played a little bit for the old Washington Senators, and he played for Ted Williams, who also was a manager for the old Washington Senators back in the day. So Kurt Flood was instrumental in that. I think it was Kurt Flood, Andy Messersmith, who used to play for the LA Angels, and I think Dave McNally for the old Dave McNally for the old Baltimore Orioles was also involved in that suit.
So, long story short, not only do our athletes need to know something about the give back and philanthropy, our black athletes also need to know about the history.
Right, that's true. That's true. and not just black athletes, but athletes in general need to know about the history. Let me get on my soapbox for a little bit. I believe Colin Kaepernick was hung out to dry because the black athletes did not back him up. And if they had backed him up, I think there would not have been the unrest that we have in the streets. But let me get off my soapbox here.
Well, I got a question for you, men. Today, and this is just an observation, I see black athletes not only buying the gold and the jewelry, I see black athletes with tattoos from the top of their head to the sole of their feet. That way I see in professional sports. I'm just saying, you don't see the tattoos, the earrings. And what's up with the earrings, bro? I never saw Coach Hughes or Coach Ruff with earrings. I ain't knocking, but that's how I grew up. I'm old school.
Right, we're both old school.
They throwing in the earrings. What's that all about? What's up with the tattoos all over their face? And where the hell can they work with all of them tattoos?
They put makeup on and then they can go to work.
What is it that the white guys understand that the black guys don't?
I think white athletes understand that baseball or whatever sport they're in, baseball, basketball, or football, is a means to an end. It seems in my perspective that the white athletes have more community responsibility than the black athletes. The black athletes, they just seem, I got mine, and that's it. Especially, let me say down here in Dallas, I for a time worked for the Dallas Cowboys. Y'all pray for them because they're a sorry organization. But it seems to be that the black athletes are more about the brand, the Cowboys or the Houston Rockets or whatever team they play for. They're more about the brand than they are about the community. That's just my perspective.
What about you, Coach Ruff?
I don't know. It looks like it's a lot about that. I don't know what it is between the two. I really don't think a lot of the black athletes don't have the knowledge when they go into professional sports that the white athletes do. The black athletes, all they see is the money. If they're lucky enough to be on that path to being a superstar or something like that, that seems to be all they can see, and it's all about, like I said, it's all about the money. They don't have. There's very few of them that have that seem to have that knowledge of what to do with that money once they start getting it.
But aren't they supposed to be don't they have these managers, and aren't the managers supposed to help them navigate that and help them develop a budget and a strategic plan and their investments and all that stuff?
They probably should, but they're so worried about what percentage they're going to get that's not even the most significant aspect of their management. And that's a problem. And if you think about it, you were talking about earlier how, most of the athletes are going towards basketball and football. Well, when you think about the process of getting into basketball or football, there's a lot more acknowledgement. There's a lot more boosting of the individual when you come into those arenas versus baseball. What is the process for getting into baseball? Are they televised? Are they, being sought after by colleges? Are they being sought after by these major league teams? It's more of the work is what baseball looks like, because you've got to work harder to get into the league, and then you've got to work harder once you're in the league. And you don't get all of the notoriety or recognition, the fame that come along with it in basketball and football.
Yeah.
And why is that? They're out there playing every week like everybody else.
Because
So
the owners have a different business model. They are looking for, like, who was it? I think like Coach Coach Hughes was saying that they are building the brand. You know, they are really building a persona and a following and a community around the cities that these teams are in and around what these teams stand for. And so they're recruiting the best of the best, you know, which is obviously causing that price tag to move up, because you want to have the next best, greatest thing in order to have everybody's eyes on your team. But you do that from, you know, way before the season starts. That's, you know, in the recruiting process where there's all the news and the cameras. I mean, ESPN, you know, how often is ESPN focusing in on baseball versus football and basketball? You know, all of those things are propagated, you know, and we have to pay attention to what's being done with that.
Why isn't that a priority for them? Why isn't baseball a priority?
It's just, well, as they said before, it's a dying sport because people are not as interested in watching it. I know for me personally, it is.
Watch this. Watch this. Who dominates football?
Who dominates football?
Black men.
It is the black athletes. Basketball the same way. They dominate.
So let me give you an inside scoop. With baseball, it's racism, pure and simple. They price black people out of the game. A baseball bat for a little leaguer today is about $400. That's not a price. Huh?
Say what? Say that again.
You mean golf clubs?
They price black people out of the game by raising the price on equipment. An aluminum bat back in the day was what, $20, Mr. Ruff?
Yep, probably might have been less than that.
Okay, but today you're going to pay for each parent, and each child has to have their own bat. Is that right, Coach Hughes?
That's correct.
So they price us out the game so that we don't dominate that, because we already got football and we dominate whatever we get.
Wait a minute. A baseball bat for a young child costs $400. They don't have, what happened to the little baseball bats at the local athletic store that you could get for $50?
They know that you can afford that.
You can't get that now. You can't right. You can't go to your
that sounds like
they used to sell bats at Toys R Us, but you can't get that in
that sounds like a business model. That sounds like a business model. Somebody needs to be making some black baseball bats and selling them.
Let me ask you, do y'all remember the movie that Billy D. Williams, Richard Pryor was in? Bingo, the Bingo.
Traveling, yes. I know the movie you're talking about.
Right in that movie. Now mind you, Kavette, you remember the Negro Leagues, Kavette?
Yep.
Yes.
We had our own. Rube Foster and black managers. We had black teams.
Right,
and
Josh Gibson.
Games, to my understanding, were sold out. But then they merged the two. First they brought in Jackie Robinson, and people say they chose him because he was more palatable and less likely to put a bat on a racist. So, but the real legends were people like Satchel Paige, who played he was 59 years old.
Right, and Josh Gibson.
My point is, we had it just like we had the black beauty industry. We had it. And other people saw the money, the value, and they wanted the money.
Right.
That's my story.
But we have been priced out of just about every sport. Do you know that in the Kentucky Derby was all back in the early 1900s? All the jockeys were black.
Jimmy Winfield.
All the jockeys were black.
Isaac Murphy.
Right. And I just lost my train of thought. I'll get the train back on track in a minute.
Well, we used to be the jockeys. Why aren't we the jockeys today? It's all Latinos.
Right. It's all Latinos.
Yeah.
We had it. We were dominant. Every sport we get into. Let me give you another fact, Kavette Minor Kane. Did you know that black people were playing hockey in Canada in the 1800s? Skating backwards?
Yes.
You know we have been skating backwards.
Trying to get out the way.
We were just smooth like that.
Right.
Moving in all directions.
But you would never notice. And so much of our history has been buried, has been hidden, has been marginalized, has been made not important. And let me give you one more thing. Recently, having graduated from Dunbar, class of 83, when we had the championship basketball team, recently this guy did a book, Latino guy from Brooklyn, on the Dunbar poets. And I was asked, hey, Donnie, did you get the book? No, I'm not getting the book. I want to read what your story is. I want to read what the Dunbar poets wrote about their experiences, not what some guy from New York wrote about our experiences. And so my point is, more of us got to pick up the pen. We're all on Instagram and TikTok, but we have to write books. We have to record our own history, because no one on planet Earth is going to tell our story like we do.
Amen.
And I'm gonna put a plug in for my publisher here. You know, she was the one who really helped me to understand how important it is for us as Black people to pick up the pen and write, noting that only 2% of books that come out every year come from Black authors. That's very significant. And
Right.
that's not even the percentage of books about Black people is much greater than that. But all of those books are not by Black authors.
Right.
You know,
That's
and
correct.
so you've got another community who sees the value in being able to write to our community, you know, and financially benefit from that. Then what are we doing? We're sleeping on it.
Yeah, it hasn't been a priority for us, and we need to make it a priority, because the stories need to be told. And, you know, our oral history, we have it all the time. We talk about it all the time, and all the people, all the greats. But, you know, who has written about the Goon Squad, Donnie Glover? And those people and the top of the President's Roundtable and all those Black businesses that united together to build something. And so what do we do about that, and how do we keep that legacy? Because at some point, that history is just going to disappear when we disappear.
Well, the thing too is we got to continue to encourage our folks to read. You know, I've heard a lot from, well, I've just heard a few times because I haven't had the conversation a whole lot, but from some folks who, you know, just don't enjoy reading or don't prefer to read, you know, the books, the longer books, you know, maybe they read the blogs or short articles in magazines and things. But do we have the encouragement in our community to read more in terms of novels, autobiographies? I mean, I remember being in high school, one of the things that motivated me to become an entrepreneur was reading Reginald Lewis's book about, what was it? White Pink.
Have all the fun.
Yeah. And I remember going to my internship when I rode the bus to go into the city for my internship when I was in high school. And I read that book every day, you know, on the bus there and on the bus home. And it was so motivating and encouraging for me. So much that, you know, through the challenges, because it's not easy when you decide to go into running business for yourself, but it's about being able to choose what is greater for you. Where's the greater, for me, is the greatest impact that I'm able to have to be able to make a difference.
And now we have audiobooks. So now you can listen
Absolutely.
to the book. And so you don't have to turn the pages anymore. You can sit in your car and on your phone and just listen to the words of the book. And you still get the same thing. It's just a different experience. So there's no excuse anymore.
Coach Ruff, why did you become a coach?
I don't know. I guess it you know, that goes back to that what we were talking about earlier, the giving back. You know, I hadn't too long come off of active duty on service when Coach Hughes approached me. You know, at the time we you know, we're like in-laws. So he approached me and told me that James Moser was adding a new team to the league, and he was going to take up coaching, and was I ready to go along for the ride? Well, it like you said, it was James Moser. Of course, I was going along for the ride. It was going back home. And I want to tell you, we accomplished something that to this day, I don't know about Coach Hughes, but to this day, myself, I feel was a great, because when that team was started, we were given the option of taking seasoned players from other teams,
right,
to start our team, and we elected to start the team from scratch.
Why?
right,
Because it was a challenge.
right.
Like I said, I had just come home from the Marine Corps. At the time, I was still active. I was home from active duty, but I was in the Marine Corps Reserves during that time.
Man, I knew our little league practice was extra hard. Y'all had us doing Marine basic training, man.
Good, and you needed to be in there longer because you still need to be corralled.
He was only 8 years old, man.
But the thing was,
Danny run the field a couple times a day.
Well, he needs to do it now.
Well, we did that too. Make him run from foul line to foul line. And our famous saying was, "Y'all going to run till we get tired."
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is, we took that team from scratch. We took a team from scratch, and we put it together. And Donnie and the others, we had the other Wilson Stanton that I see off and on now, Jamie Divers. But we took those guys, and was it 2 years, Charlie?
I think it was 2 years.
We went to a championship.
The first year we lost, we won one game.
Right.
The second year we was about 50-50.
Okay, so it must have been the third year then is when
1976 we won a championship.
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Team from scratch.
Yes, we did.
And in 3 years, we developed them into a championship team. That to me was, that was the pride of seeing how you, like we said, we took a group of young men who had never played organized sports, to my knowledge at that time.
Right.
And put them together, and they came together to be a championship team. But they learned to work together.
Right.
And they did. They were great bunch of young men, and they worked. They developed a thing where they worked together, and in 3 years, they were championship material.
Wow!
I'm getting ready to take you back. Y'all remember this? We got the fever. We hot. We can't stop.
What was that?
We got another mantra. Come on, Tony.
Well, I noticed today, Coach, they don't have that kind of chanting on the sideline.
Yeah.
I mean, we were
Y'all
doing.
have cheerleaders? Y'all have cheerleaders? Y'all have cheerleaders?
No, not for baseball.
No. Oh, they don't have cheerleaders for baseball?
The people,
first year as a cheerleader in high school, we did cheer for baseball. It was interesting, but we did.
But let me tell you this, Marsha. The worst part about James Moser is that if you were sorry, and I was sorry for a good 2.5 years, you only got 2 minutes. You rode the bench. But let me tell you, you better try to figure a way to get off that bench. And during the championship game, the center fielder had to go away on vacation. I was so happy. I finally got the game. But it wasn't my 4th year that I really swung the bat. And so one thing it taught us was patience. It taught us to study. Because if you want to replace some of those guys on the field, you had to be better than them.
Wow.
You had to catch better, throw better, hit better, be a better team player. You had to. You ready, Chip?
Yeah, you had to. But you know, and you had to look at somebody. One of the things about like Donnie when he was playing, Donnie was a little fella back in the day. He during those times he was small. He was not a big, you know, one of the big boys. He was a small guy, but he hustled.
He had heart,
and he, like you said, he got in there, and you know, he always gave it his best. So you know, today I think it shows. You know, you look at where he's at today, and I think it shows that, you know, his desire to like he said, do better, to be better than the others, to be able to compete with the big boys.
Hey, James Mason, aka Chip, how you doing, Chip?
Donnie, what's up? How you guys doing, man?
What team did you play for, Chip?
Braves, man. The only team that was the best team in the league. 78, 79, 77, 78, 79. The Braves. So Mr. Coach Johnson. I remember his name and everything.
You were a pitcher, Chip?
Pitcher, catcher, did it all, Donnie. Oh, me, man. I was legendary.
Well, you know, hey, Donnie, I have to agree with him on that, because see, Coach Hughes and I played for the Braves in the early '60s. That was our team. We played for
our team.
That's betrayal. Oh my.
Yeah, legendary. The Braves, man.
Hey, Chip, what does James Moser mean to you?
Dude, man, it gave me a sense of responsibility, man. It showed me how to be a team player. You know, it showed me a lot, man. I miss what James Moser represented back in the day. It's not the same. My son played for the Tigers a few years ago. It wasn't before they fixed the field up. I heard they fixed the field up. I haven't seen it.
It looks beautiful.
I heard. I haven't seen it yet, man. But my son played for the Tigers. It wasn't the same, man. It just wasn't the same. The feeling, the parents weren't. My mom brought sodas to every game, man. Every game they had to bring a case of sodas, and the parents were just as involved as the kids were back in my day.
Yeah.
But they don't do that anymore, man. It's not the same, man.
Maybe they don't know how to do that. Maybe they just don't know how to do that. How do we groom families to be participatory?
You got a point there. You do. Somebody got to step up. I don't know, man. But it's not. I didn't get the same camaraderie, man. We had a ball. I ain't gonna lie. We had a ball playing at James Moser. I had a home run king trophy one year. You know what I mean? They give you a trophy for just participating now. We had to earn our trophy. I'm just saying. Yeah, man. I miss it.
And so what did that do to you as a man now? What are 3 things that was your takeaway that you learned from being part of James Moser?
I learned respect for one. I learned respect for my elders. I learned respect for other kids' parents. I learned respect for the game of baseball. I learned a lot of respect for one. I carried over, you know what I mean? I learned the game of baseball. That carried over as well. I played high school ball, and a lot of cats I played ball with went and played major league ball. Brian Jordan, very good friend of mine. You know, it just taught me a lot.
Keon Carpenter,
Keon. I was just looking at his anniversary. You know that, right?
Today,
4 years ago. It was around this time. It was 4 years ago when he passed away, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, my little cousin was very good friends with him, man. Them kids used to sit around. They used to sit around and watch us play ball, you know. And
for those that don't know, who was Keon Carpenter?
Oh, he played for the Falcons. We went to Woodlawn. He went to Morocco, but he was still good people, man. Keon
He was a great dude.
Yeah, he was a good person. Hell of an athlete, a good person.
Absolutely. I remember in high school, he was very active, and he played baseball in high school as well, because he played sports all 3 seasons. He didn't sit down for a moment. he stayed busy, and and he made sure that he was active. His main thing was football, but he wanted to make sure that he was, on the basketball court in the winter and then on the baseball field in the spring, because he was still keeping himself in shape for football. He played football all summer, and when they got together for the early training, he was there at the school on the field playing. And so he set a really good example for that, even from that age. I wasn't surprised to see that he made it to the NFL.
Yeah, not surprised at all. Canfield, he represented Canfield, and he stayed true. He stayed true to Canfield, man.
He did, absolutely.
What about the players that you grew up with? Did it build a camaraderie? I mean,
to this
I've
day,
known you since we were little boys.
And how do we meet? You know what I mean? Till this day, man. Cats that came out of James Moser. It's like a fraternity. It is. It's like a fraternity, man. I didn't pledge Sigma or Kappa. I didn't pledge anything, but I went to James Moser. I came through that program. It's like a fraternity. It really is. I didn't realize it was the oldest. What is it on the East in the nation or something? It's the oldest
black in the nation.
I never knew that. I was a part of history, man. I was actually a part of history. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful feeling.
That's cool.
What players did you look up to back then, Chip?
Who did I look up to? Everybody looked up to me, Donnie. No, I'm just joking. No, I'm just joking.
They wanted that trophy.
Yeah. This guy was a dude named Kenny Davis, man. That was my man, and he used to bat left-handed. He batted left-handed, and he used to take him deep, man. That was somebody who, we hung out a lot together. We went through our battles, and we've all come out on the other end together. It's a lot of people that this man right here, I looked up to a lot of cats that were older than me, and you emulated. You wanted to be like them, Yeah, man. James Moser, that was what's
That's
up.
cool.
Yeah. I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to play, man. You missed out on something big, Yeah.
Okay, so Coach Hughes, let's get your final words. We don't want to steal all your day.
Okay. I just want to thank you, Donnie, for putting this stream together. I appreciate it. And Coach Ruff and Mr. Mason, I appreciate you guys. It's a memory that stays with me, and I just like like you, Donnie, and one of the players for the Mets, Dante Speaks. He's been nominated twice for an Emmy in music producing for BAL in Baltimore, and Mr. Ruff's nephew is one of the top attorneys in the state of Maryland. So I just appreciate that we were able to have some little portion in their upbringing. I know the parents were there, and we just added to what the parents built their foundation. We just built upon the foundation what the parents had done. And again, I just like to appreciate you. And
thank you too, Coach. Coach Ruff, your final words.
Yeah. I guess the final thing I can say is that yeah, I'm proud to have been a part of the James Moser experience, from being a player as well as being a coach. And I'm like Mr. Mason. It is a fraternity, and you'll be surprised at when I got to that age where I wasn't able to play in James Moser, and I got to junior high school. Half of the guys I went to school with were all James Moser guys. When I got to high school, when I got to high school, it was like every other guy you talk to said, "Yeah, I played in James Moser. Yeah, I'm a James." Yep. And even today, I have run into folks, some that I don't know, but some who came after me, and they will say, "Yeah, I played in James Moser. I know about James Moser." So I can say that I'm proud to have been a part of that experience. Mm-hmm. And as Mr. Mason says, I think we were part of history. And I got to say that I'm very proud. I'm also proud to see the results of some of our coaching jobs yourself. I've had you remember Stanton Wilson.
Yeah.
When I ran into him, because he joined the Marine Corps also, and I
Because of
was
you.
like I was totally taken back. He joined the Marine Corps and retired. He's a 20-year veteran. He
Wow.
retired from the Marine Corps. So that was like that to me was a little bit. I wanna say that I felt a little bit like, yeah, I had a hand in that.
Of course you did.
So,
Yeah, a role model. A role model.
yeah. So
That's right.
yeah, that's my field. That's my word. I'm just proud to have been a part of the James Moser experience, and hopefully, in my old retirement age, that I can hopefully touch base with James Moser, and maybe do something again with James Moser Associates.
Well, Coach,
Yep,
we just want to thank you for all of the cold sodas that you brought us at the end of the game because they were very, very cold. Hey, Chip, your final thought.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna tell you, Donnie, it was. I couldn't wait for my son to turn 9 years old. And this might sound crazy to you guys, but I could not wait for my son to turn 9 years old. Took me straight over there and signed him up. He played 3 years in Little League at James Moser, man. And it was like me reliving. My mom keeps saying I took him over there because I wanted. It was all on me, man. I ain't gonna lie, it was. But the thing is, he got the experience it though for
Right.
3 whole years, man. Yeah. So that's what I'll say, man. I couldn't wait for my son to get old enough to take him over there so I could sign him up, man. And I did it again. I was able to go through it again after 3 years.
Well, I'm going to fess up right here on this show. One day, Marshall, I was a bad player. We lost, and I spit in my hand and went to shake the other team's hand. All of a sudden, I'm fessing. I got the clarion call. Donnie Glover, front and center. I was like, oh, shit. Coach Hughes was right there. He said, Donnie Glover, don't you? Oh, my God. You remember Fred Flintstone was that big? Then he got that big, that big. I was that big when he finished with me. That was one lesson. And then the other lesson was ultimately the give back. When Maurice States said, Donnie, you got to come back and be a part of James Moser, and the rest is history. That was just when I started this business about 18 years ago. So thank you to these men. And there are also girls that have come through James Moser.
Oh, no doubt.
The girl
that's wonderful.
There's some girls, some standouts. Coach Gerald Qualls he was telling me about a young lady who's gone on and maybe playing pro ball or semi-pro ball as a young woman. So again, Kivette, any final thoughts before we close out? Then Marcia.
I think it's amazing to, be a part of history for you gentlemen. And I thank you for coming on to share your experience, your pride, Mr. Ruff, as well as, the information and the encouragement, Mr. Coach Hughes, about how to put things into perspective. For me, it's all financial. I'm a financial advisor. And so, looking and understanding how that's going to influence those in our community, helping them to take on that perspective in terms of a planning mission and my message with being able to help them to get organized. I think this is something that we need to continue to reflect on. If we don't know our history, then we're doomed to repeat the bad parts of it. But if we know the good history, and I think it was brought up yesterday that we should focus more on the successes that we have as a community, and we can continue to build upon that. I think this is a platform definitely that's going to support that.
Marsha Juice.
Ooh, I just want to thank all of you today. And I think that our history is critical. Excuse me. And the most important thing is, how do we develop our children? And how do we provide the proper role models for our children today? And particularly in an environment where everything is online, and for those young people who do not have access or connectivity in their homes, we need to be thinking about those experiences that you had. We can't replicate them right now, but there are other ways that we may be able to. And if we take our collective voices and our collective energy and figuring out how we're going to be able to provide that positive encouragement, those educational lessons, and how we bring them and deploy them to our young people. And I want to really thank you all for sharing that. And it reminds me, it's reminiscent of me growing up on the east side of South Bend, Indiana, and what we were doing with our children at that time, and how we need to replicate that when we come out of and be prepared when we come out of this epidemic. Then what are we going to do, and how are we going to position ourselves to help and shape our future? So thank you all very much for your commitment and your love, and for you, sir, Coach Ruff, for your commitment and your service to the United States Marine Corps. We want to thank you, and thank you for giving some of that information to those young people. And that is really critical, because it's about how do you shape a man, right? And how do we make certain that we undergird them with love, respect, kindness, gentleness, and intellect. So thank you all. And thank you, Donnie, for this show. I wasn't expecting it, and it was really powerful and wonderful and memorable. Thank you.
We stand on the shoulders of giants, Chip.
Yes, sir.
Good deal. Up to date, down tomorrow. Do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it but to do it. I got to do it, regardless of how I feel. I am somebody. I am my brother's. Good morning, Baltimore.
Good morning, Baltimore.
Good morning.
Good morning, man. Thanks, man, for
Good morning.
having me on, Dan.